What if I told you that the distance between where you are and where you want to be is measured not in miles, but in mindsets? That success isn't about luck, talent, or even intelligence, it's about who you become. You see, life is a mirror. It doesn't give you what you want, it gives you who you are. And who you are is shaped by what you feed your mind every single day. Some people wake up and feed their minds distractions, scrolling, gossip, mindless entertainment. Others wake up and feed their minds wisdom, books, mentors, deep thinking. After a year, these two people will have lived completely different lives. So let me ask you, what are you feeding your mind? Because the quality of your education determines the quality of your future. And make no mistake, I'm not just talking about school education. No, I'm talking about the education that transforms you, that rewires your thinking, that makes you more valuable every single day. Because if you don't educate yourself daily, life will do it for you, and the tuition is failure, regret, and lost opportunity. So today, I invite you to step into a new mindset. One where growth is a daily habit, knowledge is your greatest asset, and the best investment you'll ever make is in yourself. Success isn't something you chase, it's something you attract by the person you become. Too many people are out there running after money, chasing opportunities, hoping for luck to turn in their favor. But here's the truth. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. If you want more, you have to become more. I remember when I was struggling financially, blaming the economy, blaming my boss, blaming circumstances. But one day I heard something that changed everything. If you want things to change, you have to change. If you want things to get better, you have to get better. That was the wake-up call. Because success doesn't come to you, it comes through you. Think about this. Two people can start in the same company with the same opportunities, the same hours in the day, and yet 5 years later, one is thriving while the other is stuck. Why? It's not the job, it's not the economy, it's personal development. One person spent those 5 years reading, learning, developing skills, becoming more valuable. The other spent it complaining, wasting time, and waiting for a promotion that never came. The secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine. What you do every single day shapes your tomorrow. If you spend your days feeding your mind with wisdom, sharpening your skills, and expanding your knowledge, success becomes inevitable. Look around. People who have built wealth, real wealth, didn't just stumble into it. They became the kind of people who could manage wealth, multiply it, and sustain it. They studied finance, leadership, communication. They educated themselves daily, long after school ended. So the question isn't, how can I get success? The real question is, who do I need to become to attract success? Because when you grow, everything around you grows. And when you change, everything changes. Life operates by laws, and one of the greatest laws, wealth and personal growth, is the law of sowing and reaping. It's simple yet profound. Whatever you plant, you will harvest. But here's the catch. You can't harvest what you never planted. I used to wonder why some people seemed to succeed effortlessly while others struggled their entire lives. But then I realized success isn't luck, it's a harvest. If you plant discipline, you'll reap success. If you plant laziness, you'll reap regret. There's no escaping it. Imagine two farmers given the same land, same weather, same opportunity. One works the soil, plants the seeds, waters them daily. The other procrastinates, makes excuses, and hopes for a good harvest without putting in the work. Now, when harvest season comes, one is reaping abundance, the other is left with nothing. That's not unfair, that's just the law in action. The same applies to finances. Some people plant seeds of learning, investing, and discipline. They study wealth, save wisely, and make smart decisions. Others spend every dollar they earn, never learning about money, hoping someday things will magically change. But here's the truth. Money doesn't respond to hope, it responds to strategy. The harvest always matches the planting. And here's something even more powerful. You don't just reap what you sow, you reap more than you sow. One seed doesn't produce one fruit, it produces a tree that gives fruit for years. That means every book you read, every skill you develop, every wise financial decision compounds over time. Small disciplines lead to massive rewards. But remember, there's always a delay between planting and harvest. Some people give up too soon because they don't see results right away. But the farmer doesn't dig up his seeds every week to check if they're growing. He trusts the process. If you keep planting the right seeds, the harvest is inevitable. The secret to transforming your life isn't found in one giant leap. It's in the small, seemingly insignificant steps you take every single day. Knowledge doesn't come in waves, it comes in drops. And those drops, when gathered consistently, turn into an unstoppable flood of wisdom, wealth, and success. I once met a man who told me he didn't have time to learn. He was too busy working, too busy dealing with life's demands. I asked him, what if you read just 10 pages of a good book every day? He laughed. What difference will that make? I said, it won't make much difference today. It won't make much difference this week. But in a year, that's 3,650 pages. That's about 10 life-changing books. Do you think you'd be a different person after 10 books? His face changed. He got it. Success isn't about occasional bursts of effort. It's about steady progress. A single drop of water doesn't seem powerful, but over time it can carve through rock. A single dollar invested doesn't make you wealthy, but investing wisely over time builds a fortune. It's not what you do once in a while that shapes your future. It's what you do every day. Some people say, I'll start learning when I have more time, but time never hands out permission slips. You don't wait to learn. You start now. 5 minutes of a good audiobook in the car, one insightful article during lunch, a short financial lesson before bed. These small investments compound into massive results. Look around. Most people aren't ahead because they're doing extraordinary things. They're ahead because they're doing ordinary things consistently. The difference between where you are today and where you want to be is the small steps you choose to take daily. And if you commit to daily learning, one day you'll look back and realize you've built a life beyond what you ever imagined. If you want to change your income, you must first change yourself. Your bank account is a reflection of your mindset, your habits, and your personal development. People often chase bigger paychecks, better opportunities, and financial breakthroughs without realizing that money flows to the person who has developed the capacity to manage it, multiply it, and deserve it. I once knew a man who was making a decent living, but he always complained about being stuck. He wanted more money, but he never invested in learning new skills. He wanted a promotion, but he never worked on his leadership abilities. He wanted wealth, but he never studied how to manage it. One day I told him, if they doubled your salary tomorrow, how long would it take before you were broke again? He thought for a moment and admitted, probably not long. That's because money doesn't stay with someone who isn't prepared to handle it. Think about lottery winners. So many of them win millions, and within a few years, they're back to where they started, sometimes even worse off. Why? Because they never became the person who could sustain that kind of wealth. On the other hand, look at successful entrepreneurs. Many of them started with little, faced failure, and lost everything at some point, but because they had developed the knowledge, the habits, and the mindset, they rebuilt their fortunes. Your income is tied to your value in the marketplace, and your value is tied to your personal growth. If you want more, you must become more, read the books, take the courses, develop the skills. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job, and soon you won't have to chase opportunities. Opportunities will chase you. Knowledge is just like money. It compounds over time. The small things you learn today may seem insignificant, but over years, they build into something powerful. The person who commits to learning a little each day will find themselves in a completely different league 5, 10, or 20 years down the road. I remember a young man who once asked me, how do I get ahead in life? I told him, read a book a month. He laughed and said, what's a few books going to do? But he took my advice. A year later, he had read 12 books. 5 years later, he had read 60. And 10 years later, he wasn't the same person. He had mastered business strategies, understood human psychology, and developed leadership skills. His income reflected it, his confidence reflected it, and his opportunities reflected it. The problem is that most people want results overnight. They underestimate the power of consistent learning because the effects aren't immediately visible. But just like compound interest, knowledge doesn't work in a straight line. It multiplies exponentially. The first few books you read might not seem life-changing, but by the time you've built a wealth of knowledge, you start making decisions differently. You recognize opportunities others don't. You avoid mistakes that would cost you years. you gain an advantage that money can't buy. Look at the wealthiest people in the world. They never stop learning. Warren Buffett still spends hours reading every day. Bill Gates takes time for deep study. Successful people don't just work hard, they work smart by constantly feeding their minds. If you want to build wealth, start by building your mind. Read, listen, observe, and most importantly, apply what you learn. Because in the long run, the best investment you'll ever make is the one you make in yourself. If you want to elevate your life, start by elevating the voices you listen to, the books you read, the conversations you engage in, and the ideas you absorb shape your thinking. And your thinking determines your future. I once met a man who told me he was struggling financially. He was working hard but felt stuck, unable to get ahead. I asked him, who do you listen to every day? He mentioned his friends, his coworkers, and the news. I said, there's your problem. If you want to change your results, you must change your influences. Successful people surround themselves with great minds, even if those minds lived 100 years ago. They read books written by the wisest people in history. They listen to mentors who have already walked the path they want to take. They engage in discussions that challenge their thinking rather than confirm their limitations. Think of it this way. If you could spend an hour a day with the most successful people in the world, would you take that opportunity? Of course you would. And guess what? You already have that opportunity. Their knowledge is in books. Their wisdom is in lectures. Their insights are in interviews. You don't need to meet them in person. You just need to make their voices a part of your daily routine. There's a reason some people grow while others stay the same. It's not just about talent or luck. It's about what they feed their mind. When you start reading great books, listening to great minds, and engaging with powerful ideas, you begin to think differently. And when you think differently, you act differently. And when you act differently, your life transforms. If you want to change your life, start by changing what goes into your mind. Because your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant in it grows. Some people spend their entire lives collecting knowledge but never putting it to use. They read every book, attend every seminar, and take notes like a scholar, but their lives never change. Why? Because learning without action is just entertainment. I once knew a man who had a library full of books. He could quote philosophy, economics, and business strategies, but his financial situation never improved. His relationships never deepened. His health never changed. He mistook gathering knowledge for progress. But knowledge alone doesn't move you forward. Applying it does. Imagine a farmer who studies everything about soil, weather, and crops, but never plants a seed. He could explain agriculture in detail, but his fields would remain empty. That's how many people treat personal development. They gather information, but never take the first step. It's not enough to know what to do, you have to do it. If you read about investing, but never invest, you've entertained yourself, not educated yourself. If you study health, but never change your diet or exercise, the knowledge is useless. If you learn about communication, but never apply it in your relationships, what have you gained? The difference between successful people and those who stay stuck isn't just what they know, it's what they do with what they know. The wealthy, the healthy, the fulfilled, they don't just learn, they execute. They don't wait for the perfect moment, they take action, adjust, and keep moving forward. So, don't just collect ideas, use them. Every time you learn something valuable, ask yourself, how can I apply this today? Because real growth isn't in what you learn, it's in what you do with what you learn. If you've ever spent time with negative, unmotivated people, you know how quickly their mindset can rub off on you. Their complaints become your complaints. Their excuses start sounding reasonable. And before you know it, you've lowered your standards just to fit in. But the opposite is also true. Surround yourself with ambitious, disciplined, forward-thinking people, and you'll find yourself rising to their level. I once had a mentor tell me, if you want to know where you're headed in life, look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. That lesson changed everything for me. I started paying attention to who I was around. Were they inspiring me or holding me back? Were they pushing me toward growth or keeping me comfortable in mediocrity? We are social creatures, and we unconsciously mirror the habits, language, and mindset of those we spend time with. If you're constantly around people who talk about opportunity, investment, and personal growth, your thinking shifts. You start to see possibilities where you once saw limitation. But if you're surrounded by those who only complain about the economy, blame others for their situation, and resist change, that mindset becomes your default. Wealth isn't just about money. It's about perspective. It's about how you see the world, how you handle problems, and what you believe is possible. And the right network shapes those beliefs. You don't have to cut people off, but you do have to be intentional about who you let influence your thinking. If you want to elevate your life, seek out those who are ahead of you, learn from them, absorb their mindset, surround yourself with people who remind you of your future, not your past. Because at the end of the day, success isn't just about what you know, it's also about who you know and who you choose to become in their presence. If you've ever felt trapped in a job, trapped in debt, trapped in a cycle of struggle, it's not the world that's holding you back. It's what you don't yet know, because the moment you start learning, truly educating yourself, the doors begin to open. Education is not just about gathering facts. It's about gaining the ability to think, to choose, and to create a better life. I remember talking to a man who felt completely stuck. He worked hard, yet every month he barely made ends meet. He told me, "I just don't see a way out." So I asked him, "How many books have you read this year? How many new skills have you learned? How much time have you spent expanding your mindset?" He looked at me and said, "None." And that was the answer. You see, without new knowledge, you can only repeat the past. Freedom is about choices, and choices come from awareness. A person who understands money is free from financial stress. A person who knows how to communicate effectively is free to build strong relationships. A person who studies success principles is free to create a life on their terms. But when you don't know, you're at the mercy of circumstances, of other people's decisions, of a world that moves forward while you stay behind. Think about this. Why do some people turn small opportunities into great wealth, while others let those same opportunities slip through their fingers? It's not luck. It's knowledge applied. When you take the time to educate yourself through books, mentors, courses, experiences, you give yourself the ability to act wisely instead of reacting blindly. And that's the foundation of true freedom. So if you want to break free from any limitation in your life, start with learning, because the more you know, the more options you create, and the more power you have to shape your own future. Some people stop learning the moment they finish school, as if education were a task to be completed rather than a path to freedom. But those who succeed at the highest level, those who build wealth, create influence, and design a life they love, understand that learning is not an event, it's a lifelong commitment. Because the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. And the moment you stop growing, you begin to decline. I once met a man who was struggling in business. He told me, "The market changed and I just don't know what to do." So I asked him, "What was the last business book you read? When was the last time you attended a seminar, studied a new skill, or sat with someone smarter than you?" He had no answer. He had been relying on what he learned 10 years ago, while the world around him moved forward. And that's what happens when we stop learning. We become outdated in a world that never stops evolving. Now imagine another man, starting from the same place, but who commits to learning every single day. He reads a little each morning, listens to audiobooks while driving, and seeks out mentors who challenge his thinking. Over time, his perspective changes. His ability to solve problems expands. New opportunities begin to appear, not because the world changed, but because he did. And that's the secret. Education is what keeps you ahead of the game. Think of it like compound interest. A small investment in learning each day, compounded over years, creates massive returns. You don't need to read a book in a day, but you do need to read a few pages. You don't need to master a skill overnight, but you do need to practice it daily. So make a commitment, not just for a week or a month, or until things get better, but for a lifetime. Because the moment you commit to lifelong learning, you commit to lifelong growth. And that's where true success begins. Now, as we bring this to a close, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Who are you becoming through what you learn every day? Because life doesn't respond to wishes, hopes, or even talent. It responds to the disciplined pursuit of growth. The world is moving fast, Technology is evolving, industries are shifting, and opportunities are being created every single day. But only those who commit to learning will have the wisdom to seize them. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be the one who never stops growing. Because the more you learn, the more you see. The more you see, the more you can do. And the more you do, the more you become. So here's my challenge to you. Start today. Pick up that book, enroll in that course, seek out mentors who challenge you. Make education a daily habit, not a once-in-a-while activity, because if you do, in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, you'll look back and realize you've created a life far beyond what you ever imagined. The question is, are you willing to take that step?